Pocket FM.
To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.
Frank and Caroline never thought that their conspiracy would be recorded. If this was revealed to the public, they would have to give up their company, and the police might come looking for them again. This recording was evidence that they coerced Richard into committing suicide 6 years ago. Caroline looked at Frank in a panic. Compared to her, he was much calmer. Frank took a deep breath and contemplated his options. After thinking it over, he said, "Name your price." Confusion crossed Stephen's face. "What do you mean?" "I have to admit, Stephen, 6 years ago you were brilliant. You started from scratch, but you were able to establish your own business that would later become a leading enterprise in Santa Ana. But even though you've come back, you're no longer the same person you were back then. I know you married into the Cassidy family, and your status is next to nothing. Besides going out to shop for groceries, preparing meals, and serving your wife every day, your life simply isn't worth anything. But if you have money, you can leave the Cassidy family. You won't have to rely on them anymore. You can make a life for yourself, and we can give you that opportunity." Caroline instantly grasped what Frank was trying to do. "He's right, Stephen. Tell us how much you need. We can give you as much as you want." Stephen was quiet as he registered their words. Frank and Caroline wanted to buy the recording from him and erase the evidence. He laughed bitterly. "Not only do you not feel the slightest bit of remorse after forcing Richard to his death, but you're also even trying to dispose of the last remaining evidence of your scheme. Do you two not have a conscience?" Frank stared at Stephen with an expression that was devoid of any emotion. "Richard is dead. He's been dead for 6 years, but we are still alive. Is it really worth it for the living to suffer for the sake of someone who's already gone? I used to be his closest friend, and Caroline was the girl he loved. Despite what happened, he wouldn't want to see us suffer because of him. We indeed plotted against him, but after he died, I took care of Caroline for 6 whole years in his place." Stephen was rendered speechless by Frank's utter lack of shame. He and Caroline had forced Richard into a corner, which ultimately led to his death. Then they got together and seemingly forgot that Richard had ever existed in the first place. And now, Frank was implying that Richard should be grateful that he was taking care of the woman he loved for 6 years. It seemed like some people were destined to go to hell. On the way here, Stephen wondered if Frank and Caroline felt guilty for their past actions. 6 years ago, they were young and immature, and maybe they'd made a mistake that couldn't be undone. If they were riddled with guilt and willing to pay for their crimes, he would have given them a chance to start anew. But it seemed like that was unnecessary. "If you want to buy the recording, then forget it. I'm afraid you guys can't afford it," Stephen said. "If you don't name a price, how would you know if we can't afford it? Do you know how much the current market value of Star Media is?" Frank held up a finger. $1 billion. It's one of the richest companies in Santa Ana. Even if you asked us for $10 million, we would be able to give it to you," Frank replied. $10 million? For you two, I'm sure the value of this recording far exceeds $10 million, Stephen asked. "Then state an amount. As long as we have enough, we'll hand it over," Frank said. Stephen chuckled. "Okay, you already said it earlier, though. Star Media has a market value of $1 billion, so I'll ask for $1 billion. For you two, this is also an affordable price." "What? Are you crazy?" Frank exclaimed. "You might as well just tell me directly that you want me to hand over Star Media." "Well, if you want to give me your company, who am I to refuse?" Frank clenched his fists, on the verge of losing his composure. He took a deep breath and managed to retain the calm in his voice. "Stephen, I want to make a deal with you." Stephen nodded. "I also sincerely want to work out a deal." Frank ran a hand through his hair and held in his frustration as best he could. $1 billion is really too much. Just because Star Media is worth $1 billion doesn't mean that I can afford to give you that much. If you ask for a lower amount, I'd gladly hand it over. Once Frank obtained the tape recording, he would get rid of Stephen. It wouldn't be the first time he'd killed someone. Stephen refused. I'm the kind of person who hates bargaining with others. I've named my price. I don't want more, and I don't want less. If you want this recording, give me $1 billion and not a single cent less. Frank and Caroline's patience was wearing thin. Stephen was refusing to budge, but there was nothing they could do. He had the recordings as leverage. Their lives were at stake. Stephen, $1 billion is a lot of money. Why don't you and your friend have a seat first? I'll have to discuss this with Caroline. Sure, Stephen said. He looked at his watch. But you'd better hurry up. I'm not that patient. Frank pulled Caroline into the back room. Moments later, Stephen heard them arguing. The walls were soundproof, but he heard their voices loud and clear. He couldn't help but be amused by their antics. Who would have thought that Frank would come up with such a ridiculous idea to get out of this? He was shameless to his core. In the end, Caroline gave in and reluctantly agreed to his plan. Around 5 minutes later, they came out. How did it go? Did you guys come to a decision? Stephen asked, pretending like he had no idea what they were planning. Yes, we have. $1 billion is too much, but I can afford $100 million. Mr. Adams, if you want something else, I can try and get it for you, Frank said. Stephen shook his head in disappointment. You used to be so smart. How are you getting confused at this stage in your life? You don't understand what I'm trying to say. Do I need to spell it out for you? What I want is $1 billion. Dennis chimed in for good measure. Right. We only want $1 billion. Stop wasting our time. Frank dropped all pretenses. Stephen, don't cross the line. I and Caroline are trying to settle this peacefully for Richard's sake. If you insist on your ridiculous deal, then don't blame us for being rude. Have you heard of Dennis Lucero, the man who recently acquired the Klein Group overnight? Let me tell you something. Klein Group may be powerful, but it's worth nothing to Mr. Lucero. And we're one of his business partners. If you use this recording to threaten me, it's the same as threatening Mr. Lucero. If I ask him for help, the recording you have will become useless. Even if Richard comes back to life, the outcome won't change. Is Mr. Lucero backing you up? Stephen laughed and threw a glance over his shoulder at Dennis, his eyes twinkling with amusement. How come I didn't know about this? Dennis shrugged. I didn't know either. Frank gritted his teeth as he took out his phone. It's fine if you don't believe me. I've already got Mr. Lucero's number. I'll give him a call right now and make you two disappear from Santa Ana. Frank pressed the call button, and Dennis's phone started ringing. Frank shot Dennis a glare. Go out and take the call or hang up. I think it's better if I hang up, Dennis said with a chuckle. When he ended the call, Frank's call was naturally redirected to voicemail. Frank didn't think too much of it and proceeded to give Mr. Lucero another call. Dennis's phone rang again. This time, Frank noticed something amiss and hung up. Sure enough, Dennis's phone also stopped ringing. He gave Mr. Lucero another call, and once again, Dennis's phone rang. Frank went up to Dennis and asked him to show him his phone. Dennis held out his phone, and the number displayed on the screen belonged to him. Frank gave Dennis a wary look. Was he Mr. Lucero? How could that be possible? Frank held up his phone to Caroline. Are you sure this is Mr. Lucero's number? Yes, my colleague said they double-checked with Mr. Lucero's secretary to make sure they got the right number. There can't be a mistake. Frank paled and gestured to Dennis. He's Mr. Lucero. Caroline's eyes widened. Are you sure? Maybe they just happen to have the same number. Frank really wanted to ask her if she was an for suggesting something so ridiculous, but this wasn't the time for that. He turned to Dennis. Are you really Mr. Lucero? Dennis waved his phone. You called me and personally confirmed my number. If I told you I'm not, would you believe me? How much influence did Stephen really have on Mr. Lucero to be on his side? Frank couldn't even begin to imagine it. Frank, didn't you say that Mr. Lucero has your back? Stephen asked. Mr. Lucero is right here. If you have any requests, you don't need to call him. You can ask him face to face. Frank immediately straightened and assumed a more respectful tone. Mr. Lucero, is Stephen your— He's my boss. Dennis narrowed his eyes. And as I recall, you wanted me to stand up for you and make him disappear from Santa Ana just now. Frank's stomach did a flip when Dennis called Stephen his boss. No, of course not. I wouldn't dare. Since you wouldn't dare, then hand over the $1 billion, Stephen said. Frank was left with no choice but to agree to his demands. He couldn't win against Stephen if Dennis was on his side, and who knew how many supporters Stephen really had? Mr. Adams, $1 billion is really too much, Frank said. Even if we sold Star Media, we would still need some time to get the money ready. Please give us a few days. I promise we'll get you $1 billion. Stephen thought about it before replying. How about this? I'll give you 3 days. Bring the money and come find me. If I don't see $1 billion in 3 days, you should be prepared for the consequences. He stood up and headed for the door. Let's go, Dennis. When the door closed, Frank and Caroline collapsed on the couch. $1 billion, Caroline said. Where are we going to get $1 billion? Frank sighed. We don't have a choice. We'll have to sell Star Media and start over. Start over? Easy for you to say. You should already know how much effort I put in and how many sacrifices I've made to develop our company. But what can we do? Mr. Lucero was able to acquire the Klein Group in one night, and he's backing Stephen. Stephen is much more powerful than we think. After a brief silence, Caroline sat up abruptly. I have an idea. If we kill Stephen without anyone knowing, all our problems will be solved. Frank wasn't convinced. How are we supposed to do that? 3 days later, we'll tell Stephen that we managed to get $1 billion, but he has to meet us alone if he wants the money. If he refuses, we'll threaten him. We can tell him that if he won't meet with us alone, we'll kill ourselves and he'll never get the money. He'll have to listen to us. When he comes, we'll ambush him and get rid of him for good. Spending several million to hire an assassin is more worth it than losing $1 billion. Frank had some reservations about Caroline's plan, but for the most part, it wasn't a bad idea. Okay, but what about Mr. Lucero? If Stephen dies, what are we supposed to tell him? We have to make sure we kill Stephen instantly. If he escapes, we'll be done for. We can just deny it, Caroline said. There won't be any evidence. We can tell him that after Stephen took the money, we went our separate ways. Wherever he decided to go next has nothing to do with us. As for the assassins, we can ask Santa Ana's Commerce Guild for assistance. Frank frowned. I don't know if that's a wise move. Why not? One of the higher-ups has always been interested in me. If I support them, maybe we could even save several million. And with the Commerce Guild supporting us, there's no reason for us to be afraid of Mr. Lucero. Back then, the Klein Group rose to fame so quickly that there had to be someone behind them. It could have been the work of the Commerce Guild. Caroline paused and moved closer to Frank. For now, this is the only way. If we don't get rid of Stephen, we'll have to live the rest of our lives in fear of being exposed. Also, with that man from the Commerce Guild makes me a little uncomfortable. On the way back to the company, Stephen asked Jack to investigate the Klein Group. When Felicity Corporation went under 6 years ago, the Adams family did play a part behind the merger with the Klein Group, but their real target was the Commerce Guild. Stephen read Jack's message as he walked into the CEO's office. So the Klein Group was just a pawn. The Commerce Guild was the real mastermind behind what happened back then. That would explain how Lucas managed to get a hold of Santa Ana's economy and control it so quickly. The Commerce Guild had assisted him. The Commerce Guild had 3 leaders, Benjamin, Carter, and Mason. Benjamin was the CEO, while Carter and Mason were the second in command. Ever since 6 years ago, they've been making Lucas appear in public in their stead, while controlling the city's economy from behind the scenes. Ordinary people wouldn't have access to this information. Dennis closed the door behind them. Mr. Adams, why don't we take action and get rid of the Commerce Guild now? There's no need to rush. Let's wait for the money from Caroline and Frank, Stephen said. Frank and Caroline wouldn't be able to get 1 billion ready in 3 days. As such, they would turn to someone else for help. There was a high possibility that these people would turn out to be key players from the incident 6 years ago. On the outskirts of Santa Ana, 3 men in their 50s were gathered on the pier. They were each relaxing on a beach chair and fishing leisurely. Behind them stood several experienced bodyguards. The bodyguards alone were a sign of their prestige. These 3 men were the leaders of Santa Ana's Commerce Guild: Benjamin, Carter, and Mason. Benjamin swept his gaze over the river. The city's been lively lately. A mysterious tycoon named Dennis Lucero acquired the Klein Group overnight, and we 3 old folks knew nothing about it ahead of time. I know, Mason said. And it's like Lucas vanished into thin air. His phone's off, and there's no reply to any of my messages. I even sent someone to his hometown, but nobody could find him. He was an influential figure in Santa Ana, but he disappeared without a trace. Isn't that strange? Carter lifted his sunglasses. I think the strangest person in this whole scenario is Dennis Lucero. He purchased a company that was under our control for 6 years without sending us any prior notice. Does he think the Commerce Guild is just for decoration? Everyone in this city knows how powerful we are. Rumor has it that Dennis Lucero comes from a wealthy family on the East Coast, Mason said. Even if he is, who cares? Santa Ana is our territory, and we have the final say in all matters in this city. I think we should get rid of this Dennis Lucero, Benjamin suggested. I agree, Carter said. I'll have someone send him a notice of payment to gauge his reaction. If he complies, then that means he's willing to follow us. And if he refuses... Carter cracked his knuckles with a sinister smile. That's a good idea, Benjamin said. Then I'll consider the issue with Dennis Lucero settled for now. By the way, have you guys heard about the big shot who came to Santa Ana not too long ago? Mason glanced over. I've heard about it. 6 years ago, there was someone who led the 4 great generals to victory during a decisive battle, and this person, who's now the commander-in-chief, came to Santa Ana to inspect our city's military base. They say he's also the Grand Palace Master. Even though the 3 of them were wealthy and influential in Santa Ana, they had only ever heard of the Grand Palace Master. As for what kind of organization the palace was, even with their status, they weren't qualified to know the details. I heard he's not even 30 yet, Mason added. My granddaughter's in her late 20s, and her beauty is out of this world. Only someone like the Grand Palace Master is worthy of her. Let me tell you, she's... Carter interrupted him. Aren't you getting your hopes up? Just because he's young doesn't mean he's not married. You're not the only one who has a granddaughter, Benjamin cut in. I have 3, and their beauty is second to none. Carter and Mason knew that Benjamin wasn't joking. The commander-in-chief held a lofty position, and not just anyone deserved this title. But the Grand Palace Master had countless unprecedented achievements under his belt, including leading the 4 great generals and winning numerous bloody battles. It went without saying that most, if not all, aristocratic families respected the Grand Palace Master. This respect wasn't limited to elite families. Organizations like the Commerce Guild also hoped to forge a connection with the palace, because while they were powerful enough on their own, their influence was limited to Santa Ana. This was an insignificant achievement when compared to the palace's influence that extended across half of the world. Mason threw out a question. Have either of you seen the commander-in-chief in person before? It's been a while since he came here. Benjamin and Carter shook their heads regretfully. To be honest, it would be a blessing to meet him in person, Carter said. Benjamin agreed. I heard he only came here for an inspection, so his goal was probably to take a vacation. Some time ago, martial law was enacted at the city's airport. I think the Grand Palace Master was involved. Besides those at the military base, no one has seen him before. What a pity, Mason said. He thought of something and looked at Benjamin. Wasn't your father an important member of the local government? Carter followed up with Mason's line of thinking. You're right. Maybe Benjamin can arrange a meeting with the Grand Palace Master using his father's status.
What the hell are you two thinking? Benjamin asked in disapproval. But what you're suggesting isn't entirely impossible. All right, I've made up my mind. I'll see what I can do.
Tell me, what do you want in return? There's nothing I can't give you in Santa Ana. While Cory relied on his family's influence to do whatever he pleased in Santa Ana, he never resorted to get the women he took a liking to. Caroline was no different. She'd caught his interest 6 years ago, but he'd thought that it would only be a matter of time. But contrary to his expectations, she never fell for his traps. He knew that she was here to ask him for help. "You're not sweet in the slightest. I really like you," Caroline muttered. Cory rolled his eyes. "If you really liked me, you wouldn't have sought me out today." "Since you already know, I'll be upfront with you. I got caught up in some trouble today. Do you know about Felicity Corporation?" "Yeah, I heard the boss suddenly went missing 6 years ago, and the Klein Group took over. Why are you bringing this up? Is this related to the mysterious Dennis Lucero who purchased the company recently?" "Yes. The owner of Felicity Corporation, Stephen Adams, returned not too long ago," Caroline said. "Really? Did he buy his company back under an alias?" "No, but I've met Dennis Lucero. He appears to be supporting Stephen. Both of them came to see me and Frank, and they threatened us into giving him $1 billion in 3 days. $1 billion, huh? That's a big demand." Cory looked down at Caroline. "Was it because he found out that you and Frank plotted against Richard all those years ago?" 6 years ago, Cory was the one who'd given Caroline the idea to scheme against Richard. He did it for one reason: to win Caroline's heart. Needless to say, he hadn't succeeded. Whether he knows or not doesn't make a difference. It's already been 6 years, and Richard's death has been ruled a suicide. The authorities won't open the investigation again, and the Commerce Guild has our backs. They won't let him get his way. "But he has a cassette tape," Caroline pointed out. "It's a recording of me and Frank's discussion about our plan 6 years ago. I don't even know who recorded it. Even if the Commerce Guild can keep the truth under wraps, if he uploads the recording online, everyone will question Richard's death. When that happens, even the Commerce Guild won't be able to save us." Cory fell silent. The Commerce Guild was powerful. There was no doubt about that. But this was the age of the internet, where a single upload could sway public opinion. He had some involvement in their scheme 6 years ago, and he would be in deep trouble if this was exposed. "Have you thought about how to resolve this?" Cory asked. "I'm planning on—" Caroline swiped her neck, gesturing that she wanted to kill him. "I can't accomplish this on my own, but I know you have connections with people who could lend us their assistance. As long as you're willing to help me and Frank, we can get rid of Stephen and bury the truth for good." "It was my idea, but I didn't directly participate in your plan back then," Cory said. "Stephen threatened you and Frank, not me. I don't have anything to do with this. Besides, I have no obligation to help you. Hiring assassins is a capital offense." It seemed like Caroline had already expected him to refuse because she didn't bat an eye. "Cory, the Commerce Guild is one of the strongest organizations in Santa Ana. Don't you think it's ridiculous for you to talk about the law with me? 10 million in cash. That should be more than enough for you. And don't forget, Dennis Lucero is Stephen's supporter, and he's the one who purchased the Klein Group in one night. The Commerce Guild already sees Dennis as a thorn in their side. If you were to resolve their concerns, wouldn't they hold you in higher regard?" Caroline's persuasive words filled Cory with anticipation. "All right, I'll do it." Dennis turned the corner and stopped at the end of the street. "Mr. Adams, we're here." "Okay, let's get off." This time, Stephen only brought Dennis with him. He didn't contact Jack or Andrew. Those two considered 20 the bare minimum to pick him up, and keeping a low profile today was important. He was here to see Richard's mother. When they reached the intersection, a food stall came into view. An elderly woman was frying tofu behind the counter. Perhaps it was because the stall appeared rustic or the woman dressed too plainly, but few customers frequented her stall.
Please give us 2 servings of tofu, Stephen said. Coming right up. Richard's mother was in her 70s, but she was lively and full of energy. She smiled brightly when Stephen wanted to buy her tofu. She packaged the meal into 2 containers and put them into a bag, along with 2 forks and napkins. Here you go. Stephen took the bag and glanced at Dennis, who took out 10 $100 bills and stuffed them in Richard's mother's hands. She was surprised to see so much cash. You were mistaken. 2 servings of tofu are only $10. It's okay, just take it, Stephen said with a smile. Consider this a small token of our appreciation. I'm Stephen Adams, and 6 years ago, I worked with Richard at Felicity Corporation. Besides being colleagues, he was a good friend of mine. We even came up with the name of the company together. Richard's mother sighed as she remembered the past. So, you're Richard's colleague. It's a pity that he left this world so early. An aggressive voice sounded from further down the street. Old lady, did you forget about our protection fee? 2 young men marched up to the stall. Their hair was dyed a bright blonde and slicked to the side. Stop wasting your breath. Hand it over. One of them reached out to snatch the money from Richard's mother, but Stephen grabbed his arm and held him back. Stealing money in broad daylight? Do the laws mean nothing to you? The man grimaced as Stephen tightened his grip. What do you mean, stealing? We're just collecting the protection fees. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. You'll regret it, the other man warned. Richard's mother tried to stop Stephen. You should let him go. These 2 are members of a notorious gang in this neighborhood. Stephen observed the 2 men. Are you 2 Sergio and Trent's subordinates? They're both dead, one of the men said smugly. How could we be subordinates of 2 dead people? I don't mind telling you who we are, though. We're members of the Santa Ana gang. After Sergio and Trent's death, a group of hoodlums banded together to form a new gang. If Stephen was being honest, the name of their gang was largely uncreative. I don't care what group you belong to. Stephen put more strength into his grip, and the man cried out in pain. Just before Stephen fractured his arm, he let go. The man staggered back, fear flickering in his eyes. In the future, if anyone dares to cause trouble for her, I won't let them go with just a bruise. Get out of here. The 2 thugs ran away and vanished down the street. Stephen, that was the Santa Ana gang. You're in for a lot of trouble because of what you did today, Richard's mother said worriedly. No need to worry. They won't be able to do anything to me. And rest assured, they won't be bothering you in the future. Anyway, I've asked around, and after Richard passed away, you and his father were the only ones left in his family. 1 year ago, his father passed, and you're currently living alone. In the future, you don't need to work so hard and earn a living with this stall. I'll support you, so take it easy. Richard's mother was taken aback. Why would you do that for me? We're practically strangers. Didn't I tell you before? Richard and I were good friends. Before the incident back then, he entrusted a lot of money to me. He told me that if anything were to happen to him, I'll use the money in his stead and support you. An unexpected situation came up for the past 6 years, so I couldn't meet with you until now. But I told him that I would take care of you like my own mother, and I intend on fulfilling my promise. Stephen gave Dennis a meaningful look. Right, Dennis? Dennis nodded along. Yes. I see. Thank you for everything you've done for Richard. It's okay. I'm only doing what I should. By the way, where's Richard's grave? I want to pay my respects to him. Tears welled up in Richard's mother's eyes. She was relieved to know that her son had a close and reliable friend like Stephen when he was alive. Stephen and Dennis helped Richard's mother put away the tofu stall, and she led them to the cemetery on the outskirts of the neighborhood. Richard, I know your death was unjust. I'm back after 6 years, and I know the truth. Those who framed you are still at large, but I'll make them repent within 3 days. When the time comes, I'll clear your name. Richard's mother watched him with tears running down her cheeks. Stephen was the first person to pay respects to her son in 6 years. Dennis's phone vibrated with an incoming text. He took out his phone and opened the message. "Mr. Adams, it's Frank and Caroline." "It's only been a few hours. Do they have the $1 billion ready?" Stephen replied. "Yes, they want to meet you tomorrow at noon at the Milky Way Inn, but they want you to come alone," Dennis said. Dennis requested. "It's obviously a trap, Mr. Adams. Let me go with you." "No, I'll go alone," Stephen said. "It's just Frank and Caroline. What could they possibly do to me?" "That's true," Dennis agreed. He'd witnessed Stephen's strength firsthand. 2 ordinary people were no match for him. The next day, Frank and Caroline arrived early in the morning at the Milky Way Inn to make preparations. They had chosen this specific room at the end of the hallway because it had multiple hidden doors. A group of assassins was waiting for them inside. In the past, Cory had spent a lot of money to recruit them. He utilized their services whenever he couldn't deal with certain troublesome people personally. "Arlo, there are many doors to hide behind in this room. Your people will lie in ambush until you hear the sound of a wine glass shattering. That will be your cue," Frank instructed. Arlo, the leader of the assassins, nodded and put a box of guns on the table. He distributed them to the members of his group. "To make sure there's no mistake, why don't we do a test run?" Frank suggested. Arlo glared at him. "Are you questioning our skills?" After a pause, he continued. "Fine, I suppose we could. You hired us for a simple task, but you did pay us $10 million. We'll do as you say." Frank was relieved that he agreed. Arlo instructed his people to hide behind the hidden doors. He gestured to Caroline. "Do you mind if this beautiful lady acts as the person we've been hired to kill?" "That's fine with me," Frank said, giving Caroline a look. Caroline nodded in agreement. The rehearsal began. Caroline walked into the room and tried her best to act like Stephen. Frank pulled her to the table and sat her down. "Mr. Adams, I've prepared the $1 billion. Frank patted a large bag on the table. "After this, we won't have any more ties with each other. Before we go our separate ways, let's have a drink." Just as Caroline was about to pick up her glass, Frank threw his own glass on the floor. The second it shattered, several well-hidden doors opened at the same time, and a group of people clad in black aimed their guns at Caroline. Frank applauded their performance. "Well done. We'll do the same at noon." As the hours ticked by, Frank and Caroline grew nervous. The test run was only practice. Soon, a real assassination would take place. At 12 sharp, Frank received a call from his secretary, informing him that Stephen had arrived. He was alone. Frank and Caroline exchanged a glance and took their seats at the table. Arlo and his group hid behind the doors. 5 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Frank stood up. He was all smiles as he opened the door for Stephen. "Mr. Adams, you've arrived." Stephen leveled him with a scrutinizing gaze. "Looks like you're in a good mood today. If you're this happy about giving me $1 billion, maybe you'll be even more thrilled to give me $2 billion. Mr. Adams, please spare me. $1 billion was already enough to empty my accounts." "All right, cut the nonsense." Stephen looked around the room. "Where's the money?" Frank met Caroline's gaze. "It's ready." Caroline unzipped a large bag on the table. It was filled to the brim with bills. $1 billion and not a single cent less, she said. Frank spoke according to the script he'd prepared. "Here's $1 billion as promised. After this, there should be no reason for us to see each other again. Before we go our separate ways, I'd like to have a drink with you." "All right. You two did make a significant contribution to my company back then, so I'll accept your invitation." Stephen sat down at the table, and Frank poured a glass of wine for him. They clinked their glasses together as a toast. When Stephen lifted the glass to his lips, Frank loosened his grip on his own glass. As they'd rehearsed earlier, he would drop the glass, and the assassins would jump out and kill Stephen on sight. But the corner of Frank's mouth curved upwards as he released his hold on the glass. But to his astonishment, just as the glass was about to hit the floor, An arm shot out like lightning and caught it before it could shatter to pieces. Stephen put the glass back on the table. Aren't you two agitated today? You can't even hold on to your glass properly. Oh, it does make sense. After today, we won't have anything to do with each other, and what you two have done to Richard will be buried forever. Having the chance to turn over a new leaf is something to be excited about. While Stephen wasn't wrong, thinking about his new chance at life was the last thing on Frank's mind. He had to break his glass. Otherwise, Arlo and his group wouldn't make their move. You're right, I am excited. Mr. Adams, I'm really sorry about what happened just now. Let's have another drink. Frank raised his glass again. I think you should give Richard a toast with your first glass of wine. Stephen took the glass from his hand and spilled it on the carpet before placing it back on the table. Don't you have a few words you'd like to say to Richard? Frank was reaching the end of his patience, but he couldn't expose himself now. He reluctantly put on a somber expression. Richard, I'm sorry for everything I've done. Today, with this 1 billion, I've settled any grudges between us, and we won't owe each other anything. While Frank was rambling the first words that came to his mind, an idea struck him. He poured himself another glass of wine. Rest in peace, Richard. Just as Frank was about to throw his glass on the floor, another glass shattered next to him. It was Caroline's. The hidden doors opened at the same time, and 6 men jumped out. They aimed their guns at Stephen and fired. 6 gunshots rang out simultaneously. Frank and Caroline had long since ducked under the table the moment the doors opened. The sound of gunfire faded, and the room lapsed into silence. Frank poked his head out from under the table with a smug look on his face. He wondered how tattered Stephen's corpse would be. To his surprise, Stephen was sitting in the same spot without a single scratch. On the table were 6 guns. All of them had been dismantled. Arlo and his group stared at Stephen with their mouths agape. What's going on? Frank asked in confusion. Can't you see? When we opened fire, he swiped all 6 of our guns and dismantled them. Arlo said matter-of-factly. Is he even human? Since their plan had been exposed, there was no point in pretending any further. I don't care, Arlo. You may not have your guns anymore, but he's not dead yet. Just gang up on him. He has to die today. A faint smile appeared on Stephen's face. Frank, do you really think you can beat me? In the next instant, 5 of the assassins reached for their necks, as if sensing something, but it was too late. Their eyes rolled to the back of their heads, and they dropped to the floor. They were dead. Arlo subconsciously reached for his own neck. There's no need to feel your neck for a wound. I'll let you live, Stephen said indifferently. Your marksmanship should be top class. Work for me from now on. Frank and Caroline panicked when Arlo agreed and switched sides in a heartbeat. Mr. Adams, listen to me, Frank pleaded. This was all a misunderstanding. I really didn't want to kill you. The 1 billion is all yours. Let's go our separate ways peacefully. You're quite eloquent with your words, Stephen said as he glanced at the bag. Do you think I'm an idiot? How could 1 billion in cash fit in there? Stephen tossed a dagger onto the floor. I'm not one to let things slide, especially when it concerns the people around me. I'll count to 3. I'll spare whoever gets the dagger first and kills the other person. It was at this moment that Frank and Caroline realized that they'd made a mistake. They never should have gone against Stephen. Even Arlo was on his side. They knew that Stephen was being serious. He was someone who always kept his word. Stephen began counting. 1, 2. Before he could even count to 3, Caroline dived for the dagger and plunged it into Frank's neck without hesitation. Disbelief crossed Frank's face as he collapsed to the floor. Caroline seemed shocked at what she'd done, but it only took her a few seconds to come to terms with the fact that she'd just killed someone with her own hands. She turned to Stephen with a strange calm in her demeanor. Mr. Adams, I did it. Stephen was genuinely surprised by her ruthlessness. So you have. To be honest, I didn't expect that from you. But Caroline, you violated the rules. You didn't wait until I counted to 3. What? You can't do this to me, Stephen. Caroline's voice shook, but then her tone turned sinister. I'm Cory's woman now. You wouldn't dare lay a hand on me. Cory? Never heard of him. He's Carter's son. In case you didn't know who that is either, he's the second in command of the Commerce Guild. Stephen pretended to be surprised. So he has a powerful background? Thinking that he was scared, Caroline continued to boast. If something happens to me, he won't let you go. Then, do you know who I am? Stephen waved for Arlo to come closer and whispered his identity. Arlo was stunned. He straightened and composed himself before walking around the table and picking up the dagger that Caroline had dropped. Compared to Mr. Adams' identity, not even Cory or his father, Carter, is worth mentioning. Caroline took a step back as Arlo picked up the dagger. The doorbell rang. "Who is it?" he called out impatiently. A man's voice sounded from outside the room. "I've brought a gift for you." Cory went to open the door. He peered outside, but no one was there. There was, however, a small box on the floor next to the doorway. Cory grabbed the box and went back inside. Was this some kind of prank? When he lifted the lid, he almost dropped the box in horror. The same ring was on his own finger. He and Caroline had bought a pair of matching rings together yesterday. Cory took out his phone and called Arlo in a panic. His phone was turned off. He gave Caroline a call. Her phone was turned off too. Cory felt like death was staring at him from the shadows. After calming down, he noticed a slip of paper peeking out from underneath the finger. He carefully pinched the edge and tugged it out. The following was written. 6 years ago, when Felicity Corporation went under, Richard was framed for a crime he never committed. Whoever drove him to his death, I hope to see you in front of his grave tomorrow at noon. Cory crumpled the paper in his hand. No one had ever threatened him like this before. He wouldn't let them get away with it. He threw the ball of paper on the floor and immediately made a call. The next morning, after Stephen sent Kim to work, he took a cab to the Wyvern group. When he entered the office, Dennis handed him a letter. "Mr. Adams, we received this in the morning." Stephen skimmed the contents before tossing it to the side. "Commerce Guild? Fees?" "Yes, they're asking for $10 million a year," Dennis said. "Speaking of which, has our Wyvern group joined the Commerce Guild?" "No, but I believe the Klein group was affiliated with them." "That makes things simple. The Klein group is the Klein group, and the Wyvern group is the Wyvern group. There's no relationship between them, so there's no reason why the Commerce Guild should ask us for fees. We'll tell them that the Wyvern group won't be paying them a single cent." After asking Annika to give the Commerce Guild a reply, Stephen and Dennis went to Richard's grave. Caroline had learned her lesson, and she'd been waiting for them for several hours. Yesterday, she decided to lose a finger rather than lose her life, but either outcome was devastating. Stephen walked up to her. "Caroline, have you repented? Do you feel guilty now that you're standing here in front of Richard's grave? Losing a finger doesn't come close to making up for what you've done. I could have killed you and avenged him, but you were the woman he loved, so I chose to let you live. But remember, that doesn't change the fact that you caused his death. Leave. I don't think Richard would want to see you again." With Stephen's permission, Caroline paid her respects before hurrying away. She was afraid that Stephen would change his mind. "It's already 11:55. Is Cory not here yet?" Stephen asked. "I don't think he's coming. He's never seen you in action, you know," Dennis said. "That's true. Seems like I'll have to show him what I'm capable of," Stephen replied. "Yes, but tomorrow we're officially changing the company's name to Wyvern Group. Don't you think it'll be bad luck if we shed blood on a day like that?" Dennis requested. "Now that you mention it, you're right. Okay, we'll let Cory be for 2 more days. We'll settle the score with him after tomorrow," Stephen said. The 3 leaders of the Commerce Guild were gathered in the conference room. Benjamin slammed his fists on the table. "This is preposterous. Dennis is clearly looking down on us." "Exactly." Carter pointed at the letter from the Wyvern group. "Look at what they sent. They declared that they would never pay fees to a subpar merchant guild. They're obviously not taking us seriously." "Benjamin, we can't let this drag on," Mason said. "We need to make them understand who we are and why we're at the head of Santa Ana. I heard the Wyvern Group's holding an event tomorrow to make their name official, and they'll be changing the sign to Wyvern Group. Do you have any ideas? Benjamin asked. Since they've clearly established their stance, we can't let them off. What if an accident happens tomorrow during the event? For example, their CEO getting shot and killed. There will be chaos, and people will be getting trampled on. The public won't sit still if there are casualties. This will be our gift to the Wyvern Group. Carter gave Mason a big thumbs up. That's clever. That's not a bad idea, Benjamin said. Have you made arrangements already? Yes, I've also spread the word among the public that the Wyvern Group will be holding an event, and everyone is invited to join in on the fun. They may not be able to see Mr. Lucero up close because they don't have an invitation, but they could still watch from the sidelines. The more the merrier, and the bigger the disaster. At the Wyvern Group, Stephen was fiddling with a sniper rifle in the CEO's office. What do you think? It's been modified by experts from the palace. It makes no sound upon being fired. No one will know where the shot came from. Not bad, Dennis said. If we had this rifle in the military, our strength would greatly increase. That'll happen eventually. Next up, let's talk about tomorrow's event, Stephen replied. Dennis pointed to the buildings across from their company. We'll have one sniper at each building equipped with this rifle. They'll be on standby and take action as soon as they spot anyone who wants to mess up the event. In addition, I contacted the military and asked them to send a team to wait in an ambush at the end of the street. If anything unexpected happens, they'll let me know right away. Sounds good, Stephen said. The Commerce Guild has been running loose for too long. It's time to uproot them all. Ever since Felicity Corporation was established 6 years ago, the Commerce Guild had been indulging in illegal activities and abusing their authority. The existence of their organization restricted the economic growth of Santa Ana. Stephen wouldn't let them do as they pleased in this city any longer. When Stephen arrived at Haynes Industries, everyone from the family was already there, including Gordon and Mavis. Judging from the serious atmosphere, they were discussing important matters. No one paid Stephen any mind when he took a seat. They continued their conversation as if he weren't there. Kim was the only one who acknowledged his presence. Gordon was sitting at the head of the table, leading the discussion. I believe you've all heard of the mysterious CEO, Dennis Lucero. Tomorrow he'll be holding an official event to rename their company to Wyvern Group. They say he's invited several enterprises. Don't underestimate the Wyvern Group, Mavis added. Mr. Lucero acquired the company in one night without the Commerce Guild knowing. He can't be underestimated. There are rumors that he has the support of the military. I'm afraid something big is about to happen. Naturally, everyone had heard that the Klein Group had been purchased overnight, but what they didn't know was that the Commerce Guild wasn't aware of the acquisition. Before Dennis purchased the company, the members of the Haynes family didn't have the status nor the necessary qualifications to meet with the previous CEO, Lucas Klein. It went without saying that other than the fact that the Commerce Guild was a powerful organization in Santa Ana, they knew nothing about their internal workings. If Dennis had managed to purchase a company without obtaining prior approval from the Commerce Guild, that would mean that he was above them in strength. If the Haynes family could achieve a business partnership with the Wyvern Group, Dennis would be their backer by extension. They would no longer have to deal with pressure from the Commerce Guild. If we attend the Wyvern Group's event tomorrow, it would be a huge boost to our Haynes family's reputation, Gordon said. If the Commerce Guild demands of us in the future, they would need to consider Dennis. But unfortunately, we haven't received an invitation. The event is tomorrow, so they're probably not planning on inviting us. Cohen sighed. If only we could get a list of those they invited. Then we wouldn't have to blindly guess. At the very least, if we know for certain that we weren't invited, we could try to come up with a way to get an invitation. But as things stand, there's nothing we can do. I have that list that you want, Stephen said. Stop bluffing. If you don't have anything useful to say, then leave.
Cohen had been holding a grudge against Stephen ever since Linda was forced to give up her position at Haynes Industries. Kelly's husband chimed in. "You're just a stay-at-home husband. Why would you have that?" "Stephen, do you really have the list?" Kim asked in a low voice. Stephen opened a file on his phone and gave it to Kim. "Yeah, here it is." Kim's eyes lit up. She passed the phone to Gordon, who put on his reading glasses. With a serious expression, he took the phone and looked over the list. "Are we on the list?" Mavis asked. Gordon put down the phone and shook his head. Everyone was disappointed to hear that. Gordon turned to Cohen. "You work in the local government, and you have connections all over the city. Would it be possible for you to ask the Wyvern Group to give us an invitation?" With Cohen's position in the city, the Wyvern Group would have to at least accept his request for a meeting. "I could try, but..." Cohen looked at Gordon expectantly. "As you know, a company as big as the Wyvern Group wouldn't hand out invitations to just anyone, so..." "If you need financial support, you can come to talk to me at any time. Even if we have to give them hundreds of thousands or even $1 million, we'll do it." Cohen had a triumphant smile on his face. "Thank you." "Why would you need to hand over $1 million for a mere invitation?" Stephen asked in disdain. "Grandpa, as the husband of Haynes Industries vice president, I could take care of this for you." Cohen scoffed. "Do you really think that you're capable of that just because you were able to get a list of the invitees? Mr. Lucero is the one who decides who will get an invitation. Do you think you have the ability to change his mind? Don't overestimate yourself." "Of course I can change his mind," Stephen said confidently. "It's just a matter of a few words." "It's been a while since you came to Santa Ana, but your habit of bragging hasn't gotten any better," Kelly's husband said. "I'm not bragging. Why don't we make a bet? Tomorrow morning, the Haynes family will receive an invitation from the Wyvern Group. If not, then Kim will resign from her position as vice president." The members of the Haynes family had been concerned about Kim's position, and hearing Stephen himself propose a bet gave them an opportunity they'd been looking for. Kelly shrugged. "You said it, not me." "Yes, I did, but I'm not finished. If you do receive an invitation, then Kim will have full authority over Haynes Industries' staff." Even though Kim was the vice president, everyone in the Haynes family held important positions, and they abused their status to make things difficult for her. As a result, it was hard for Kim to move forward with her work. Gordon accepted Stephen's bet. "The time limit will be tomorrow morning at 7:30. When Stephen and Kim returned to Riverview Villa, Natalie was shocked that Stephen had made a bet with Kim's position on the line. "You must be out of your mind." "Forget it, Mom. Let's leave it up to fate," Kim said nonchalantly. She'd only come to Santa Ana for Mavis's birthday, but they'd ended up staying much longer than planned, and she'd even become the vice president on a whim. Kim didn't feel much attachment to her position, so she was indifferent to either outcome of the bet. The next morning, the Haynes family sent someone to Riverview Villa to urge them to hurry to the company. They would be announcing the results of yesterday's bet. Kim looked at her watch. It was only 6:30 a.m. The Haynes family was probably rushing them because Stephen had lost the bet. It did make sense, though. While the Haynes family was wealthy, it was nowhere near Dennis's level. Since Kim would be resigning from her vice president position, she decided to dress up more than usual. She would leave with a bang. Stephen was entranced when she left the room. "Kim, you look beautiful today." Kim's face reddened. "Am I not usually beautiful?" "You're pretty every day, but you're especially pretty today. Did you dress up because you think we're gonna win?" Kim gave him an incredulous look. In what way did her flashy outfit scream winner? It was more like an extravagant way to salvage her dignity after losing the bet. Stephen drove Kim to Haynes Industries in Dennis's car. Everyone from the Haynes family had been waiting here since early in the morning. "You're finally here," Cohen called out when they entered the conference room. He turned to Gordon.
Since everyone's here, let's announce the result. Gordon nodded. I will now announce that Kim has officially resigned from her position as Haynes Industries vice president. Wait, Stephen interrupted. He pointed to the clock on the wall. There's still 10 minutes until 7:30. You made a decision early. That's not under the rules. Cohen sneered. Do you think the Wyvern Group is going to add our company's name to their list of invitees in 10 minutes? That's just wishful thinking. They're probably busy making the final preparations for their event, Kelly's husband added. Stephen, you've already lost. The rest of the Haynes family joined in. Even if we were to wait until after 7:30, the result would still be the same. If you don't have the courage to admit that you've lost, just be honest. We're all family here. We don't look down on you. Kim had long since mentally prepared herself. Stephen, let's just admit defeat. No, I don't lose. Stephen glanced at the clock. Time was ticking, but there was no sign of Dennis. He stepped out of the room to give him a call. Where the hell are you? Sorry, there was traffic. I just arrived. I'm pulling up in front of the company as we speak. Dennis replied. At this time, the screeching of a car's tires grating on the pavement sounded from outside the company. Sparks flew as a came to a stop. With all eyes on him, Dennis strolled into the building and headed up to the conference room. 30 seconds before 7:30, he entered the room and walked straight to Gordon and Mavis to greet them. Gordon and Mavis exchanged a questioning look. Who might you be? Hello, I'm Dennis Lucero, the CEO of the Wyvern Group. Dennis took out an invitation and handed it to Gordon. I came here to deliver an invitation to my company's event. We'll be officially changing the name today, and we'd be delighted to have you there. Everyone looked on in disbelief as Gordon opened the invitation. Sure enough, his and Mavis's names were written on it. At the bottom corner was the official seal of the Wyvern Group. I have to go back and prepare for the event, so I won't disturb you anymore, Dennis said. Our event will start at 10. Please attend if you have the time. Of course, Mr. Lucero. We'll be there. Gordon and Mavis were thrilled. The CEO of the Wyvern Group, Dennis Lucero, had come to personally deliver the invitation. This alone was enough for the Haynes family's reputation to soar. Compared to everyone else who'd been invited, Dennis had personally taken the time out of his schedule to deliver an invitation to Haynes Industries. The winner has been decided, Stephen said after Dennis left. It's time for you to fulfill your promise. Gordon nodded. I'd like to officially announce that Kim Cassidy, the vice president of Haynes Industries, will be appointed the director of the Human Resources Department. Kelly voiced her objections. We may have received the invitation, but I don't believe it was because of Stephen and Kim. Everyone, think carefully. Why would Mr. Lucero personally deliver the invitation? This was the question that everyone had been wondering about. The Haynes family paled in comparison to Dennis's status and wealth. Why would he pay so much attention to them? While everyone was trying to rationalize Dennis's actions, Kelly continued to speak. The reason is simple. It's thanks to Linda's husband, Cohen. Remember what he said yesterday? He works in the government, so it's not surprising that he contacted Mr. Lucero using his connections. Mr. Lucero probably heard about Cohen's government position and wanted to befriend him. That's why he came here with the invitation. The members of the Haynes family looked as if they'd suddenly been enlightened. That makes sense. Well done, Cohen, Gordon said. The rest of the family nodded in agreement. Cohen was confused, but he reacted quickly and played along. You're too kind. You hid it really well, Megan's husband said. This is a commendable achievement, but you were planning on hiding it from us and helping the company in the dark. You're a true role model. Megan's husband glanced at Stephen and Kim. Unlike some people who couldn't achieve anything but still want to take credit for it. Fortunately, Kelly figured it out in time. Otherwise, none of us would have known what Cohen did for the company. Stephen was dumbfounded by how the situation had unfolded. He was the reason why Dennis had come to the company in the first place, but Kelly had somehow convinced everyone in the room with her illogical speculations. And Cohen had shamelessly taken credit for something he hadn't done. Stephen couldn't reveal his identity, but he also couldn't lose the bet. Kim's position was at stake. I have a few words I'd like to say. When I made a bet, I never said that Uncle Cohen had to be the reason behind the invitation. As long as the Haynes industry receives an invitation, it would be my win. Everyone was present and heard exactly what I said yesterday. Therefore, you should admit defeat unless you want to embarrass yourselves. Everyone turned their attention to Stephen. He was right. His exact words were, tomorrow morning, the Haynes family will receive an invitation from the Wyvern Group. If not, then Kim will resign from her position as vice president. They hadn't clarified the details of the bet yesterday. Gordon was embarrassed when he realized his error. From the way things stood, he couldn't say that Stephen had lost the bet. You're right, Gordon conceded. You've won the bet. As I've stated earlier, Kim will be the director of the Human Resources Department. To the Haynes family, Gordon's words were essentially a verdict. No one could refute him. As for Kim, she'd been prepared to lose her position, which wouldn't have mattered either way. But not only had she kept her vice president position, but she had also been given another position. Being the director of the Human Resources Department meant that she had full authority over the company's staff. After the meeting, Gordon and Mavis made preparations to attend the Wyvern Group's event. At the Commerce Guild, Benjamin, Carter, and Mason were gathered in the conference room. The arrangements are complete, Mason said. When Mr. Lucero reveals himself, the assassins I've hired will kill him instantly. The guests will panic, and the venue will turn chaotic. That's when the members of Santa Ana gang will mingle with the guests and cause even more trouble. Are you sure you've planned for everything? Benjamin asked. Absolutely, Mason replied. I spent a huge sum of money to hire the assassins. Their marksmanship is top tier. They never miss. Also, they can easily blend in with the crowd and snipe Mr. Lucero when he makes his appearance. No one would expect an assassin from right under their noses. This is the perfect gift for Mr. Lucero. 15 minutes before 10 o'clock, the entrance to the Wyvern Group was bustling with guests. A plaza was located in front of the building, and it had been decorated with lights and banners. These guests were among the wealthiest in the city. They had all come early because they couldn't wait to see Dennis in person. At this time, the man of the hour, Dennis, was with Stephen in the CEO's office on the 30th floor. We've located the position of 5 assassins. They've blended in with the crowd, but there's at least 1 assassin situated in the east, west, north, and south preparing to kill you, Stephen said. Dennis scoffed. They want to assassinate me? I'd like to see them try. Look forward to my performance, Mr. Adams. All right, I'll be meeting with the 3 leaders from the Commerce Guild after the event's over. When Stephen and Dennis left the office, they split up and headed in different directions. 10 minutes later, Dennis arrived at the plaza in front of the company, while Stephen stepped into an alleyway. The entire plaza was in an uproar when Dennis showed up. They cheered for him and shouted his name. Dennis went on stage and greeted the audience. As he waved, he scanned the crowd and pinpointed the locations of the 5 assassins. When Dennis's gaze fell on one particular assassin standing behind Gordon and Mavis, they thought he was looking at them. Gordon and Mavis exchanged an excited glance. Did you see that? Mr. Lucero looked in our direction. The event took off without a hitch, and soon it was nearing its end. Benjamin, Carter, and Mason were watching the event aired live on TV. The scene that they imagined of Dennis being assassinated did not happen. The company's upper management staff stood next to Dennis as he replaced the sign with a new sign containing their new name, Wyvern Group. There were many opportunities to kill him, but from the beginning until the end, the assassins didn't make a single move. Mason was bewildered. That's impossible. The 5 assassins I hired have never failed to kill their targets. Benjamin's phone rang. His expression darkened as he received an update on their plan. What's wrong? Mason asked. Before the Santa Ana gang could mingle with the crowd, they were caught by the Special Forces. Why would the Special Forces be around? Maybe Mr. Lucero caught wind of our plan and set up the scene ahead of time. There's an 80 to 90% chance that our assassins are dead. But who could have leaked our plan? Mason glanced at Carter suspiciously. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Do you really think I would spill the beans? Mason, don't make wild guesses, Benjamin said. The three of us lead the Commerce Guild. None of us would benefit from leaking the plan. We need to think about this carefully. There's no need to think further. The door to the office swung open, and Stephen walked in with a smile plastered on his face. Long time no see. Benjamin grasped the situation the moment he saw him. Were you the one behind this, Stephen? That's right. Stephen opened his hand, revealing 5 bullets in his palm. He put them on the table. These bullets are from your assassin's guns. Benjamin, Carter, and Mason were stunned as they examined the bullets. What's your connection with Mr. Lucero? Benjamin asked. Stephen walked to the front of the room and took a seat behind the CEO's desk. I'm his boss. As for my identity, I don't mind telling you. I'm sure you've heard all about the palace. It could be considered my private property. Are you implying that you're the Grand Palace Master? Benjamin laughed. Don't be ridiculous. If you were really the Grand Palace Master, you wouldn't have disappeared 6 years ago and let your Felicity Corporation merge with the Klein Group. Even if you are Mr. Lucero's boss, you would still have to rely on the Commerce Guild to be successful in this city. Do you think lying about your identity will scare us? Mason added. Right. We're not afraid of you, Carter said. Benjamin's phone rang again. This time, he was excited after taking the call. Good news. Andrew Hendricks from the palace is paying a visit to the Commerce Guild. That's great. He can expose Stephen's lies for us. With Mr. Hendricks' support, we can deal with Mr. Lucero easily. Stephen paid them no mind and looked out the window. The line of luxury cars attracted the attention of the passerbys, and Benjamin, Mason, and Carter, who were in the office at the top of the Commerce Guild's building. Mr. Hendricks is here. Benjamin waved to Carter and Mason impatiently. Let's hurry downstairs to welcome him. It's a great honor for him to visit us in person. Mason fixed his collar, preparing to follow Benjamin out of the room. He was worried that Andrew would have a bad impression of him if his clothes were untidy. Stephen called out to them. Aren't you getting ahead of yourselves? I doubt Andrew would support your business. The 3 of them turned around. What do you know? Mr. Hendricks is part of the palace. For ordinary people like you, if you knew what kind of organization the palace was, you would be scared to death just hearing the name. Oh, really? Tell me about him. Listen carefully, Carter said. Mr. Hendricks has a net worth of hundreds of billions. He's as rich as a nation. He could destroy an entire city's economy and set them back 30 years if he really wanted to. Many of the wealthiest families around the world have to show him respect. Stephen leaned back in his chair. He does have an incredible background. This Mr. Hendricks sounds terrifying. Now that you know, I doubt you would still go around parading as the Grand Palace Master. We'll be sure to tell Mr. Hendricks about this when we meet with him, Mason said. While they were caught up in their conversation with Stephen, Andrew had already gotten out of the car and went into the building with his bodyguards. Benjamin, Mason, and Carter ended their discussion and rushed out of the room. Stephen casually strode after them. They spotted Andrew standing in an imposing manner in the first-floor lobby. They hurried over and greeted him with big smiles. Benjamin began introducing himself as the CEO of the Commerce Guild, but Andrew completely ignored him and walked up to Stephen. Mr. Adams, it's nice to see you again. Andrew's bodyguards followed suit and greeted Stephen in loud voices. Benjamin, Mason, and Carter were stunned by the shocking realization that Stephen was indeed the Grand Palace Master. Andrew, it doesn't seem like you take my words seriously. How many times have I told you to keep a low profile when going outside? Do you not understand what I'm saying, or do you not understand what's going on? Andrew had a puzzled expression on his face as he thought it over. But, Mr. Adams, I've already toned it down compared to last time. This is the bare minimum required to greet you. Benjamin, Mason, and Carter glanced outside. More than 100 people were accompanying Andrew. How was this considered to be low-key? Did Mr. Hendricks have some kind of misunderstanding about the definition of low profile? What surprised them the most was that Andrew appeared to be at a loss when Stephen questioned him, as if he was worrying that he'd done something wrong. After a moment, Andrew looked up with a newfound revelation. Mr. Adams, I understand. Stephen heaved a sigh. Do whatever you want. There was no getting through to him. Stephen looked at Benjamin, Mason, and Carter and flashed a smile. See, I didn't lie to you. Andrew followed Stephen's line of sight and fixed them with a glare. So, you're the ones who were plotting against Mr. Adams. The three of them scurried in front of Stephen and lowered their heads. Mr. Adams, we were confused by the situation, and we didn't realize your esteemed identity. We've offended you by mistake. Now that it was confirmed that Stephen was the Grand Palace Master, they wouldn't dare to question him. It would be a futile attempt to go against him. Are you willing to accept any punishment? Stephen asked. Yes, they answered in unison. Then from now on, your Commerce Guild belongs to Andrew. As for the three of you, even though you've been abusing your authority in Santa Ana for many years, you were the leaders of an organization that stabilizes the city's economy. Turn over a new leaf and change the Commerce Guild for the better. Santa Ana's entire economy was under the Commerce Guild's control. If Stephen were to make any major changes in the hierarchy of the city, it would cause unnecessary disturbance and panic amongst the people. In addition, subduing these three would benefit both the city and the palace. Benjamin, Carter, and Mason didn't expect that Stephen would let them lead the company again. They were even more shocked when he told them that they would be people of the palace starting today. Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Adams. We'll serve you to the best of our abilities. Work hard. Remember to keep my identity and what happened here today a secret. After wrapping up their discussion, Stephen left the building. Just as he got in the car, he received a strange message from Kim's number. Stephen, your wife is in my hands. If you don't want anything to happen to her, come to the abandoned factory in the suburbs tonight at 8 o'clock. You'll regret it if you're late. Stephen shoved his phone into his pocket and slammed the car door shut. He sped towards Haynes Industries. How dare they kidnap his wife? He wouldn't let them get away with this. At the company, Stephen rushed to the security room and asked them to show him the footage of the entrances and exits. According to what the security cameras had captured, Kim left the building alone after receiving a call. While she was waiting for a cab on the other side of the road, a black van pulled up. The car door opened, and a group of men grabbed her and stuffed her in the car. It was an unlicensed van, and there was no way to verify the vehicle's information. Stephen sent the video to Jack. I need the destination of the unlicensed van in 5 minutes. The message sent from Kim's phone had instructed Stephen to meet them at an abandoned factory at 8 o'clock, but that didn't necessarily mean that the kidnappers and Kim would be there. In less than 3 minutes, Jack sent the location of the van to Stephen. According to the security cameras, the van had driven to a remote alley. There wasn't much in the area except for an illegal gambling den. After confirming the destination, Stephen wasted no time and headed towards the gambling den alone. When he arrived at the alley, he sent a message to Kim's phone, threatening to release her unless they wanted to deal with the consequences. Stephen put his phone away and walked up to the entrance of the gambling den. The man standing guard stopped him. Hey, you, what are you doing? I'm here to ruin the show. He went over to the first table he saw and shattered it with a fist. The surrounding gamblers flew into a panic and ran towards the exit. Kim was curled up in a corner. She was tied up, and a black cloth had been stuffed into her mouth. Carter's son, Cory, was enjoying a hearty meal with Benjamin's son, Mason's son, and the leader of the Santa Ana gang, Blake. Kim's phone vibrated. Cory picked it up and laughed when he read the text. Her good-for-nothing husband is giving us a chance to send her back unharmed. He even said we won't be able to handle the consequences if we don't listen to him. Isn't that hilarious? He's threatening us. He doesn't know who he's dealing with, Mason's son said. We're the family of the Commerce Guild's leaders, and with Blake on our side, we're invincible. Whoever opposes us will... Exactly, Benjamin's son said. He disappeared 6 years ago, and he thinks he can just make a comeback whenever he wants. Keep dreaming. I heard from my friends in Los Angeles that Kim's really pretty, Benjamin's son called out. Wouldn't it be a waste to harm her just like that? Wouldn't it be more exciting if we captured that Steven when he comes? Cory and Benjamin's son immediately agreed. Blake laughed from the side. Those three sure knew how to enjoy themselves. Just as Cory and the others came up with their plan to get back at Steven, Blake's underlings ran into the room. Someone barged in here and made a mess of the tables. Blake was the leader of the Santa Ana gang. After Sergio and Trent were killed, Blake formed the Santa Ana gang and quickly gained power. They were in cahoots with the Commerce Guild's 3 leaders, so it didn't take long for them to take control of the city's underworld. Blake rose from his seat. I'll go out and take a look. Cory, Benjamin's son, and Mason's son didn't move to follow him. This was the Santa Ana gang's base. Their members were everywhere. Not only that, Blake was the leader, and he was enough to handle a small matter like this one by himself. When Blake left the room, he saw a man approaching him. Blake shakily raised his arms, indicating that he wasn't a threat. The man took a step forward, forcing him back into the room. Cory, Benjamin's son, and Mason's son looked up in confusion. Not even 2 minutes had passed. Blake, why are you back so soon? Did you take care of it? That was fast. Blake had his back turned as he moved further into the room, but their attention wasn't on him. It was on the man in front of Blake, who'd just stepped past the doorway. Steven?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.
Pocket FM. To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.